telling you, the oil and gas industry is like the Denver Nuggets, just win after win after win. In November, voters rejected stricter energy drilling regulations. Today, the state Supreme Court essentially ruled that state regulators don't need to give greater weight to public safety when they review drilling permits. Our Marshall Zellinger breaks down what this all means.
The Colorado State Supreme Court today taught us what it means to be wordsmiths.
The Colorado Supreme Court was focused on a really narrow legal question about what a few words in a statute means.
Election law attorney Christopher Jackson helped us understand the decision. That decision overturned a lower court ruling that said state oil and gas regulators must give greater weight to public safety when reviewing oil and gas permits. The Supreme Court wasn't deciding on whether or not this was a good policy idea. It was basically dissecting legal language. Terms like consistent with and subject to. The court wrote a statute is ambiguous when it is reasonably susceptible of multiple interpretations, meaning lawmakers write a more clear law.
To me, the message for all sides here is the courts will not save you. You have to take this fight up in the political branches of government.
It's very much a semantics thing.
18-year-old Chetescott Martinez is the namesake of this decision.
I was 13 years old when this petition for rulemaking began.
He led the group that challenged the state regulators, and the state Supreme Court took notice, writing what I'm calling the Full House life lesson moment. The court acknowledges the civic engagement of these young men and women. The resolution of these weighty and sometimes conflicting policy concerns, however, is not the issue before us.
I think it makes them look better. To be like, yo, yeah, we acknowledge them for what they're doing, but we still didn't decide on their behalf. They're silly if they think that we're going to stop, after this loss. We've been taking L's for a minute, from Prop 112 and the over $40 million that we were outspent by the industry to, a variety of different things. We're still pushing.
I've never seen someone smiling when they say we've been taking L's for losses. This decision does not mean state regulators don't consider public safety at all. According to their rules, the state public health department is actually consulted if the local jurisdiction requests it, or if the oil and gas operator seeks a change, or if there are more than 8 wells, or if there are a certain number of buildings within 1,000 feet. So it's not all we forget public health altogether.
So now on to the new version of writing this up. I love how we came full circle with the Denver Nuggets theme, though, with all the industry does is win, and then Chetescott's talking about taking L's on the way out.
As long as you don't play the Phoenix Suns, you'll be all right.
A little Coach Malone moment. All right, Marshall, thank you. So when Democrats who control the state capitol get to work, they're likely to legislate what the court did not rule today. Democratic State Senator Mike Foote of Boulder, he's an outspoken critic of the oil and gas industry. He's already talking about a bill which would essentially take the Martinez case and convert it into state law.
We can change around the deliberations to make sure that health and safety really does come first. We can also make sure we improve local control so that local governments can go above and beyond what the state thinks is appropriate. Local governments can do that for every other kind of land use, but oil and gas is the one exception where they can't do that.
And it would seem that Governor Jared Polis would back up his fellow Democrats on this idea. He said today that he was disappointed in the ruling and suggested that legislators could improve the rules. If you are wondering how former Governor John Hickenlooper is staying busy since he left office, he and a million other Democrats are running for president, and also he's under investigation, so he's got a lot going on. Hick has not been able to completely shake the state's Independent Ethics Commission. They're looking at a complaint by the former Republican House Speaker Frank McNulty, who challenged some of Hick's trips as governor, suggested that the governor violated the state's limits on gifts. Hickenlooper provided receipts for a few of the trips, but the commission is still going to look into a conference that he went to in Italy and 4 trips that he took on private jets, including one to Texas, where he officiated the wedding of the brother of Elon Musk. Lost in our conversation about the 800,000 furloughed federal workers are the federal government contractors who aren't getting paid right now and most likely will not get back pay like federal employees. Here's our Noel Brennan with that.
When I got out here, I just had to go at it because I need to stay busy.
His yard is ready for spring, long before any leaves will bud.
All the landscape here was full of leaves. I've been able to clean that up.
You might envy this yard until you hear the reason it's so neat.
I have more time on my hands than I want right now.
Brent Langdon is longing for work.
The Friday before Christmas was the last day I worked, and I have not been in Fort Collins at all since then.
Brent is a federal contractor, now furloughed.
I just want to get back to work.
He works in IT for the USDA under the same roof as federal employees.
A large majority of our group is contractors.
Unlike federal workers, Contractors are not guaranteed back pay for work they've missed.
We're very close to people starting to look elsewhere because they have to provide for their families.
Brent is lucky he hasn't missed a paycheck yet.
I do get paid because I'm using personal time off, paid time off, because I built it up. I started building up, took a little bit of a less vacation this last summer because I wanted to anticipate for something like this.
He has about a week of vacation left and knows coworkers who have less.
So if we cannot work, we should be covered financially just like the federal employees.
His yard doesn't need any more work, but Brent does.
My goal is that our leaders would just work together and just do it. Get it done.
For Next, I'm Noel Brennan.
Last week, there was a group of Democratic senators that floated an idea to give back pay to low and middle income federal contractors. There's nothing been proposed yet in terms of legislation. We'll keep you updated. Thousands of checks were mailed to a P.O. box in Castle Rock with the hope that they would be used to build President Trump's border wall. 3,500 checks in all. The group that collected them says it's now contacting those people by mail to see if they would like refunds or whether they want to redirect their donations to a new nonprofit, which is going to try to build some of the wall itself. The checks are part of the billion-dollar GoFundMe campaign that went bust end of last week. It did raise north of $20 million to build the wall, but it's being forced to refund those donations because they said they would do that if they didn't reach $1 billion. Until today, there's this looming question about what was going to happen to all the checks that were mailed to a P.O. box in Castle Rock. The woman who collected them is on the board of the new nonprofit along with that man, former Colorado Congressman Tom Tancredo. Denver's joining 16 other Colorado cities and counties in a federal lawsuit against some of America's largest pharmaceutical companies. The suit alleges that those cities and counties are suffering the consequences of the company's aggressive marketing and excessive distribution of prescription opioids. While this suit says the companies deliberately downplayed the significant risks of addiction and overdose. Denver coroner says between 2008 and 2017, 870 people in Denver have died from overdoses. Denver's desire for supervised drug injection sites will be debated at the state capitol in the coming months. You'll sometimes hear them called safe injection sites, safe being a relative term, obviously. But then there's also the issue of safety in the streets, where needles are being discarded. There's a petition with thousands of signatures asking for needle collection boxes at Starbucks stores. It says that employees are at risk of getting pricked by the needles while they're cleaning the bathrooms. Our Nusha Roy looks at an issue that's faced by a number of businesses.
Drugs on Broadway are a part of life for some people who do business here.
You'll see people literally nodding off as they're walking.
It's so out in the open.
And you'll find needles out front, you'll find them in the alley.
Erica Ryder, who runs Hope Tank, is open about it too.
I have personally been impacted by heroin use in my family and in my friends.
She also wants her employees to be safe.
Small business.
And knows too often that's not the case when people are shooting up inside bathrooms.
So here, come here, let me show you.
It's part of the reason her restrooms are closed off to the public.
Since 2017, city workers and our contractor have picked up about 12,000 discarded syringes in the public right-of-way. And that's really dangerous.
The city of Denver is getting ready to install 3 kiosks that look like this in the coming months. They're going to be bolted to the ground, but in public.
Our hope is also that we can identify locations that are well lit.
But even if businesses wanted something similar, Ryder said they're not always sure where to turn.
We have had nothing.
The city said when it comes to private property, they can always reach out to the Department of Health for guidance, but ultimately it is the owner's responsibility. And a group called Harm Reduction offers these boxes for free, but said not everyone is comfortable with installing them.
I think people think it will encourage more drug use.
It's also not the only solution.
You know, we see, which we love, a huge uptick in tourists down here. And there are no public restrooms. And so then what happens is then businesses are feeling the pressure to, let people use their bathroom.
It's complicated and a domino effect. Starbucks said that they were already looking into these Sharps boxes to throw away needles before this petition. You're going to see something similar. DIA, grocery stores, even public libraries. All of these have them locally as well. And remember, they're not just for drugs, but also for people who may have diabetes or need needles for any kind of other medication. Everyone would be able to use those.
You can imagine businesses kind of being torn on this.
Right.
They don't want the needles on the ground. They don't want their employees and customers in danger. You also probably don't want a box on the wall that says people do drugs here.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what, the business owner we talked to said, it's so hard sometimes to find the right solution because she doesn't want her employees to be unsafe, but at the same time knows there's always a flip end to any kind of solution that they come up with.
Interesting. Anusha, thank you.
Developers rule Denver streets, giving people the runaround with sidewalk detours.
Basically treating those people as second-class citizens who don't deserve as much consideration.
Clothing donations are up, and charities are thanking one woman in particular for inspiring the rest.
I think women are really trimming down their closets and really focusing on what is necessary.
And when to give our neighbors a pass for crossing a line in the snow. That's next.
There's a pattern developing with the photos you're sending us for our You've Crossed a Line segment. People are parking smack dab in the middle of driving lanes in parking lots these days. So we started our little campaign here trying to maximize the limited parking available around town. Didn't think we'd run into this. Next, viewer named Matthew saw this at Southwest Plaza Mall. Now, we're going to give the Volkswagen on the left a pass. There's some snow on the ground, just kind of on the line. But the Honda, you're just in a lane. You're just completely off to the side in a lane. See how all those other cars are lined up? And then there's you, Honda. Come on. If you can top this, send your photos to next@9news.com.
Cool, calm, and quiet in Denver this Monday evening with afternoon temperatures ranging from 51 downtown to 43 out at the airport. Snow totals from Friday's storm all over the place as well. About 1.5 inches officially at DIA, but many of you saw 6 to 8 inches of snow and another storm brewing for Friday. We're down to freezing already at the airport with a wind chill of 24. Winds increasing out of the southwest as a California storm takes shape. Waves of energy will be coming our way from the west. That means snow in the high country as early as tomorrow. tomorrow night, and a chance for snow in Denver again on Friday when the whole system launches from the southwest into our state. In the meantime, it is clear and very cold tonight. We have a few high clouds coming in to Denver in the afternoon, and then the snow begins in the high country late in the day. But there are no advisories for travel as of yet. Clear, cool, and 23, your downtown low. Gets you into Tuesday with a high of 50. Temperatures close to 50 until the end of the week. 30% chance of snow in Denver on Friday. Clearing and cool for the weekend. And a beautiful shot coming in from Clear Creek Canyon, Kyle. Chris Chilson with that shot for us tonight.
Clear Creek Canyon. Thank you, Kathy. It is not a fork in the road, technically. It's a fork in the sidewalk. So you're walking in Denver, you come up on one of those construction sites that's sprawling onto the sidewalk, and you're forked. You're forced to cross the street, sometimes back and forth and back and forth. A group that pushes to make this a walkable city tells our Steve Stager they don't think Denver's doing such a great job of making sure we can get around these closures.
If you counted them, you'd probably find more of these than there are cranes in the skylines. Signs that say the sidewalk is closed. Pedestrian advocates argue they often also say you're SOL, surely out of luck.
A lot of times people are just caught by surprise, mid-block, all of a sudden they encounter a sign that tells them they have to cross the street, which means they either have to backtrack or human nature is you just cross right there.
We witnessed human nature while shooting this story. These sidewalk closures go hand in hand with construction, but Jill Locantori with Walk Denver says the city's rules for construction companies could use a little updating.
It's set up right now as basically an incentive system where the developer has to pay a fee to close the sidewalk or close a traffic lane, and the fees are set up in such a way that it doesn't incentivize them to provide a safe route for pedestrians.
Walk Denver wants to see updates, which would require developers to do more than just let you know the sidewalk is closed.
Ideally, you provide a path directly adjacent to the construction site that's safe and protected for the pedestrian.
Something like this detour along 8th near Colorado Boulevard, where the contractor built a plywood walkway.
That could be simply taking over some parking spaces and using that as a pedestrian path with some kind of barrier between the street.
The city is listening. They hired a contractor to give the rules a little update. And soon, there may be a better answer for you about what to do if you see one of these signs.
The ideal is that you don't force the pedestrian to cross the street or to walk several blocks out of the way.
For Next, I'm Steve Stager.
Changes could be coming. By April, the city might require construction workers park off-site and not in the neighborhood around the construction sites. Meanwhile, Walk Denver still wants to see any real funky sidewalk detours you see.
Secondhand stores are swamped with donations lately as people look at their stuff and ask, does this spark joy?
The Colorado community has always been very generous, but lately it has been a lot.
And I'm no expert on animal science, but does this look normal to you? That alpaca's got kind of like a John Popper thing going on. Next.
It's a sign, but I'm not sure what it says about us. Someone stole the gender-neutral bathroom sign at Alternation Brewing Company on South Broadway recently. It's a great sign. You see there, male, female, whatever, just wash your hands, it says. So let's hope that somebody just really liked the message and wanted it at their place, so all we're dealing with is theft, because if they did it to be hateful, well, then we've got a whole other layer of problems. Send us the signs that make you think. Email next@9news.com or get our attention with the hashtag HeyNext. So over the weekend, my wife and I watched our first episode of that Marie Kondo show, The Joy of Tidying Up. We are obsessed with this now all weekend long. I kept yelling to my wife, let's Marie Kondo this room, let's Marie Kondo that room. It's minimalist living. You want to get rid of your clutter. There are so many people getting into this show and the book behind it that thrift stores are swamped. Our Byron Reed shows us how one local store is reaping the benefit and paying it forward.
Haley Pacello loves her internship. She's been helping man the phones for the past 2 months at Dress for Success in Denver.
We have a whole boutique full of clothing, and all of those donations come in every second Saturday of the month. And so I am constantly answering phone calls about when those days are, what kind of attire we take, and what kinds of things clients are looking for.
Okay. The nonprofit offers support in professional attire.
Everything from dresses to skirts, blouses.
For women wanting to get back into the workplace.
We're serving women who are coming out of incarceration, coming out of shelters, perpetually unemployed and homeless. We're paying the clothing forward. We're giving it to somebody else so they can get a job, so they can keep a job.
Amara Martin is the group's executive director and says this month they've seen an increase in donations.
The Colorado community has always been very generous, but lately it has been a lot. I think people are really paring down, and they're going down to what is necessary without all the junk.
A trend most of these stores are seeing this time of the year, especially when resolutions become a reality.
We are really looking at our lives and getting rid of all of the excess and focusing on what is really necessary and what we need.
Yes, absolutely.
Keeping interns like Haley busy answering questions.
So it is from 10 to 12 this Saturday.
And learning all about the trade of giving back.
So I really wanted to get my master's in social work so that I can focus my energy in the nonprofit sector and really give back to my community and clients. Even though the phone keeps ringing.
For Next.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
I'm Byron Reed.
Does this spark joy? Trip to the stock show reveals some interesting animal behavior, and your feedback tonight does the same. Next. Llamas get all the love, but alpacas, they are charming animals as well. And there are competitive alpaca shows at the National Western Stock Show. It opened over the weekend with record attendance. What exactly are we seeing here? Is there an alpaca expert in the audience who can tell me what this guy is doing here? It looks like he's playing harmonica on the rail. And this is not good for the show, because I'm told that in addition to being judged on their coat, the alpacas are also judged based on how straight their teeth are. Can't you just hear your mom, I pay for braces, and then you go and chew on the rail like that? We finished with your feedback. A friend of the program writes in about those needle boxes. Says, I work at Starbucks in Greenwood Village. Would love a needle disposal unit. Nobody sees a needle disposal unit and thinks, I should start meth. See you next time.